Well, hey everybody, welcome to our first episode of Expedition STEM. We're your hosts. I'm Chris,
And I'm Andrew.
and really, this is our place to do a weekly video about what we're seeing in the news, our favorite nerd topics of the week, and of course, the stuff that we're working on or reviews that we're working on for the week. So we want to give you a little tease of some of the interesting videos that you'll be able to find when you log on to or when you subscribe to our channel. So enjoy. Before we jump into the news of the day, I have to ask, Andrew, have you had the chance to watch Deadpool yet?
Yes, I actually saw it last night because you were bugging me almost every day.
Good. I gotta say, it's probably one of the best from social media marketing and the way that they pulled everything together. The visual effects, I was just kind of blown away by how they were able to do a lot of the things, like Ryan Reynolds having a hole through his arm when he gets shot.
Right.
By the way, I don't want to give any spoilers away in this for anybody who hasn't seen it. If you haven't seen it, you're stupid. Go watch it. But you know, I'm just amazed also at the quality of the production. I don't know if you stayed to the very end, but there's one of the things it says is that it was made, the entire movie was cut and edited on Adobe Premiere Pro. Now we use Adobe Premiere Pro. It's a consumer product, and I think it's really cool that anybody can go out with a really good camera and make cinema, full feature quality video using just off-the-shelf product like Adobe Premiere Pro, which is what they're using.
And that's actually what we're using right now to edit this video.
Exactly. You know, did you have any general thoughts on your side? I mean, what did you think? What other than just liking the film? I hope you liked the film.
Yeah, it was very funny. It was definitely different than I thought it was going to be. You know, I heard a lot of hype about the movie, but I didn't hear much about the plot or the summary. So it was a very good experience to get that and see that this, if you want to call it a superhero character, this character is very, very different than any other Marvel or I would say even DC comic character that you've seen before. I'm not huge into the comic world, but you know, just from a consumer point of view, seeing these movies, it was definitely a different Marvel movie, that's for sure.
Well, and I think part of it's also part of the appeal to me, besides the fact that it's rated R. I think that the movie was very meta. In fact, it made fun of itself. There are scenes I love in the credit sequence that's going on at the very beginning. It even has Ryan Reynolds making fun of himself. The way that they describe all the people, like, you know, a douchey dude, you know, being played by a really pretty boy. You know, or something along those lines, where it's like, yes, we know this is a movie, we know this is not only an action movie, but it really is a comedy, and he's kind of the anti-hero, while still like somehow being able to pull on your heartstrings of this mercenary who becomes this, you know, superhero, or what he thinks will be a superhero.
Right. And I would say, just, you know, relating this to math, there was one sort of math scene in the movie when Deadpool broke the fourth wall, but then inside that breaking of the fourth wall, he broke the fourth wall again, and then he comes back and he says, "I just broke the fourth wall within the fourth wall. Does that make it 16 walls?" I was like, "Yes, 4 squared is 16."
Yeah. Anyhow, that's enough of Deadpool. We don't want to give anything away. If you haven't seen it, I say go out and see it. If you like comic book movies, even if you don't like comic book movies, it makes fun of comic book movies, and it really is a nice romantic love story. So, you know, go out.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. I really liked how they pointed fun at the other Marvel movies and other comic book movies.
Well, he made fun of himself as the Green Lantern,
right?
Which is the worst comic book movie ever. So, yeah. I love that he made fun of himself there. Anyhow, let's get to the news of the day. We have a couple of interesting stories, top stories that we found during this week that I think a lot of people should be interested in. The first one, relevant to Deadpool and the vast number of bullets that he fired, is actually the U.S. Army came out with or posted a new patent that they got for exploding bullets, and they're not the exploding bullets that actually are designed to hurt people. They're the kind that will actually help civilians and other people because they will dismantle themselves in flight before becoming a lethal object over a certain period of time. Andrew, I know you served in the Army. You probably much more proficient in firearms training than I am. I'd love to know your take on the design and what do you think of the Army coming out with something like this?
Well, I think anything that can help the innocent people from getting hurt is a good idea. The first thing you want to do is to always make sure that you are, as if you're shooting something, you definitely want to make sure that you're shooting in a direction that does not hurt anybody.
Right.
The ranges on a military base, they are set up in a certain way so that when you're firing in that direction, there's nothing behind your target that there's not a building behind there that you could possibly hit or anything like that. So the Army does definitely take a good safety step into making sure that the bullets that aren't dismantling themselves don't end up in the wrong places. But it'd be really interesting to see the technology that's involved in creating a bullet that dismantles itself after it's already engaged its target. I think that's a very good idea. I'm not sure how much it would cost, that sort of thing. Is it something that's gonna bankrupt the taxpayers? I don't know. But.
Right. Well, and I think that was one of the biggest hindrances in Engadget. When I read the story there, one of the things that they said is that the lack of funds is probably the reason that they won't get developed. I'm curious: is it possible for the Army, being a governmental agency, to license the patent to Federal or Remington or any of the actual ammunition manufacturers here in the States, so that civilians can have, or at least provide those bullets to the civilian population to hopefully reduce the amount of gun crime, or at least injuries from this type of ammunition. Maybe make it mandatory that civilian bullets other than target shooters or specific hunting ammunition might be required to have this kind of technology in it.
Yeah, that'd be great. There's a whole there's a load of people that get hurt by guns every year, and there's some of those that are from ricochets and that sort of thing. So anything to reduce the amount of innocent people getting hurt is definitely a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, so the next topic we're going to look at, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this whole debate about the FBI versus Apple. So I don't know, what you've heard so far, so I just want to give you a sort of like an intro. Basically, what's happening is the San Bernardino terrorists had a iPhone 5C issued to him from his employer, which was the county of San Bernardino. The Farouk had a password on his phone, and he had enabled the setting that if you try the password incorrectly 10 times, that it erases all data on the phone. Well, the FBI is trying to get into that phone, but if they guess the password wrong 10 times, then it erases all the data, and they don't want that to happen. They want the data, and there is currently no software that exists that can bypass that security measure. And so this whole debate is about whether or not Apple should help the FBI. Now, Apple has been ordered from a court in California to assist the FBI basically in any means to do this. Now, that means that they have to install special software on the phone that will allow the FBI to disable the auto destruct feature on the phone. And so, if it was just this one phone, that would be, one story. But the issue is that Apple is saying, and a lot of other companies are agreeing, that if the software is made, it's not just going to be limited to one device.
Right.
It could potentially be leaked and used on hundreds of thousands or millions of devices.
Yeah, well,
Um,
essentially they're being asked to create a skeleton key that can be used, and the Apple seems reluctant to hand over a skeleton key to anybody, for good reason. I mean, I think that they would want to protect anybody's phone. There's places around the world where they've built their business based upon security, which is why they're the number one device in parts of Asia, because they know that people can't unlock the phone, and you don't have prying eyes, and so that's a key advantage for them in certain areas. Um,
mhm.
Skeleton keys also, I mean, from a mathematical encryption perspective, are very, very difficult to create. I mean, you're looking at 128 or 256 ASK, or AEK encryption, um, and developing a key that can look at all the different permutations, billions of permutations of numbers. We actually did the math. If it's just a 4-digit PIN code, and you can use each digit any random number of times, you have what, 10,000 possibilities. And so even after ten chances, you can't get it. But even if you got past the 4-digit PIN, the encryption layer that sits on top of that pin, or at least what the key is generated from that 4-digit, times the 256 powers thereof, um, that becomes super. You would need supercomputers working continuously for years in order to be able to actually crack it. Um, I think just being limited by the 10 chances is another bigger problem. One of the things that I think is actually more pressing about this is uh, the legal precedent that it sets, if this could hold up, that companies can now be conscripted into government service. You look at Box. Box has developed or has stated that they want everybody to have their own content. Your customers are in charge of their own content, and they want to develop security to a layer that even under court order, they could not be compelled to open up what's inside somebody's files. Um, uh, I think the conscription, being conscripted in the service is one thing. I think the other part is where does the bright line stop of when you can start looking at, does does the skeleton key give you access to um, uh, kind of NSA like spy, warrant with or without a warrant, is a question. And then does it violate the Fourth Amendment as well, like your right to not self-incriminate if you choose not to release your phone or to offer access to your phone files or whatnot? um, is there a way to um, uh, you know prevent a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights and those protections?
Yeah. So just to clarify, the Fourth Amendment actually is the amendment that talks about the unwarranted searches and seizures, which is
Mm-hmm.
which is definitely a topic in this debate. And then the Fifth Amendment is the right against self-incrimination. Um,
Right.
what's interesting is, first of all, if you didn't know that the proposed backdoor that is being sought by the FBI, it's only applicable to iPhone 5 models and prior. If you have an iPhone 6, they have a totally different layer of encryption, so you're pretty good on that. If they did create this backdoor, it would only apply to iPhone 5s and before. And just to let you know how a little bit of the math works, Chris talked about it, but basically your password, which is usually a 4-digit number, however,
Mm-hmm.
so Chris said, we have 10,000 chances of getting a hit if you have a 4-digit password. Obviously, if you have more digits, it's a little higher, and if you have a combination between uh, alphanumeric, if you have the alphabet and you have numbers, they even have a higher time limit into
as as well as your special characters or whatnot.
right. So I read some data where the if you have a 4-digit pin with just numbers, if you had the right amount of software, and the FBI already has the software, it's basically called a brute force attack, where they just start with one and go all the way up to 10,000, try and guess up with guess your number. That would take about a half an hour on this iPhone. But if you had a combination of alphabet and numeric digits, then it could take up to 5.5 years to crack a random password or a password that's very secure. So even if, so long story short, make sure you have a good password because it's not, this debate is talking about the government, but they're also talking about Apple's also concerned with hackers because, if the software is created, it has the potential to be leaked somehow and end up in the hands of hackers. So we're not so concerned with, everyone wants to, do everything they can to prevent terrorism, but,
Yeah.
you have to sort of weigh the cost between what's on this device and what could potentially happen if this sort of technology was released into the wrong hands, that sort of thing.
Yep.
I just wanted to also note that, it's not just the FBI against, or it's not just Apple that the FBI is against. They're against, they're going to be against other companies in this debate as well because Google, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, and Yahoo have already taken a stance against or for this debate and against the FBI. They're backing Apple. So whether you pick one side or the other, if you think Apple is just doing this for marketing strategy, as the FBI suggests, well, then why would Google, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, and Yahoo also start to file motions in regards to this debate? So everybody knows that the encryption is a important subject to debate, but in the end, it's there for the consumer's protection, and we need to keep it protected.
Yeah, I think the person who said it best is actually Bill Gates, who took a very neutral stance on it, saying that companies need to be able to protect their intellectual property, and the government has to be able to protect its own people, and there has to be a middle ground somewhere that in one-off cases or instances of terrorism threats or a threat of investigating what happened for these threats. That there has to be a one-off opportunity for us to get to the bottom, not only in terms of prevention, but also to make sure that justice is brought to people who have done wrong. So it's a very, very neutral stance, but I think it's understanding the importance and power of technology, the importance of the technology as being a central part of our world, but also the needs for people. These are people's lives. So I think that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, I know this past week Mobile World Congress is going on, and there was a lot of talk this week about virtual reality, 4K VR, and even you, I believe, came out with a Samsung VR when you upgraded your phone. Is that right?
Yes.
So this week, Samsung had their whole Mobile World Congress global live stream happening that you could watch through VR. Tell us a little bit about your experience. What did you see? What was it like? Do you see this being something of the new wave of the future with VR?
Yes, definitely. So VR has been this whole kind of subject matter where it's never been sort of good enough or what to be released to the consumer market, and everyone's thought of virtual reality mainly in the movies, but not really in real life. I don't know, Chris, if you remember, but back in the day, this is probably like 1997 or something. Game Boy came out with a console called the Virtual Boy. Did you ever get to play one of those?
I did play with the Virtual Boy.
Yeah, so if anyone's played with the Virtual Boy, they know that thing is, that's sort of what I think a lot of people think that virtual reality is still. But one of my friends has an Oculus headset, and that thing was pretty cool. But what the Samsung VR does is it offers virtual reality at a very affordable price to a mass market. So the Samsung VR, it's called the Samsung Gear VR. It's $99, and it can only be used with limited phones. So the Note 4, the Note 5 from Samsung, as well as the S6 line that includes the S6, the Pluses, the Edges, as well as the new
Hmm.
S7s that are going to be released in a couple weeks. It's only compatible with those phones, but it offers these different sort of experiences. And one of the cool ones that I really like, there are a few, but one is they have like a movie theater experience, so you can watch your own movies that you upload to your device, or you can also stream movies like The Martian or other ones that I have in the store there. And I'll try and paste a little video down here, but it looks like you're in a movie theater watching this movie, and even watching this little video clip that I'm putting down here, you're not going to get the experience that you will have wearing this thing. It literally feels that you're in a movie theater. One of the other great things I love is the ability to go through Google Street View. So I'm sure a lot of you people have used Google Street View before. You can go almost anywhere in the United States, and it's all over the world too. And you can literally drop yourself in the middle of the road and scroll around Street View to see a building, or if you're trying to read something else. This device allows you to immerse yourself in that world, and it literally makes you look like you're standing in the
Hmm.
middle of this street. And so I visited my old neighborhoods that I grew up in. I went to Paris, I went to Rome, I went to the pyramids, and it feels like you're there. It's really amazing. It's of course it's not a live stream or anything like that, but it still makes you feel that you're there. It
Yeah.
also offers 360-degree gaming. I've only played a few games so far, but the gaming seems pretty cool. Um, and a lot of you might have heard of Google Cardboard, and
Hmm.
like me, when I was first researching the subject, I was asking myself, okay, what's the difference between Google Cardboard and Samsung Gear VR? And if you're not familiar with Google Cardboard, it's basically this cardboard headset that you put on. You can basically any Android device can run it, and it makes you look like you're sort of in this virtual reality world.
Yeah.
So why pay $99 for the Samsung Gear VR? Well, Samsung Gear VR Samsung has partnered with Oculus, and they have more features built into the actual headset so that you get a better experience. And basically, what it comes down to is latency. Latency is the delay between when you turn your head and when the video reacts.
Right.
The Google Cardboard doesn't have anything built in, it's just using the sensors on your phone. So when you turn your head, there's a little bit of a slight delay.
Right.
But with the Gear VR, you can whip your head around and notice very little delay. And if you're moving your head kind of slowly, you will notice no delay at all. And so
Right.
it makes you feel more immersed into that 3D world. And Chris, I know you got a few Google Cardboards. How do you find that
Well,
experience?
so the cardboards end up being one. They're a little uncomfortable, just because it's cardboard and it's resting against your face, and you can end up with a little scrape or something across the bridge of your nose. You also have to hold it in place. There's a few that come with like an elastic band that wraps around your head, but it's kind of hard to get it to stay in place. And there's a few other products that are out there, other head-mounted displays that really use the one, they're able to finer tune the lenses that are inside, so you can actually point them and have it, because not everybody's eyes are set the same distance apart. It makes it better for a better viewing experience. The cardboards, however, just have fixed lenses. So
Mm.
if you have wider set eyes, or narrower set eyes than the average position, it becomes difficult to look at some of the content. Um, Now, in terms of wandering through lag, I haven't found lag to be much of a problem, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm doing something that's live streamed, I get a ton of lag. But if it's something that's batched, downloaded video content, for example, the Discovery Channel has a really interesting Discovery VR application that you can then, go surfing with Kelly Slater, or you can go diving through a shark reef, or you can do some of the things with the guys from MythBusters and look all the way around the set, or the experiments or the things that they're doing. Deadliest Catch actually filmed a bunch of things in 360-degree views from various views on the ship, so you can actually look at them as well. But it's just one long video playback, and you can't really explore a world or anything. You're just literally looking around, sitting in a chair, looking up, looking down, whatever you want to do.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Latency ends up being a problem streaming wise. And this is actually something that with the advancement of 5G we may see an increase of. Um, but one of the problems right now is the file sizes for an HD or even 4K video. 4K meaning 4,000 pixels on a screen. It has to be at a very high bit rate, and most of the mobile networks and even Wi-Fi networks, in-home Wi-Fi networks, can't stream at a high enough bit rate for you to get it, which means they don't deliver the content fast enough. So while you might be looking around, unless even if they're using what's called adaptive streaming, which means they send it out three different file sizes or four different file sizes or bit rates, a fat one or a narrow one based upon your network conditions. I'm getting nerdy here, but unless you have a very high stream, you're going to have latency as you look through it. You're going to have resolution problems where it's going to down res and become fuzzier in picture just so it can keep up with the stream as you're uh, as you're participating in it. I think Zuckerberg also in both his Samsung talk as well as an interview with the USA Today has a interesting view. I mean, Facebook invested heavily in Oculus, and they finally priced their Oculus, even though it's not delivering yet. But he said this. He said it's we're pretty soon we're going to be living in a world where everyone has the power to share experiences across any scene, right there as if you're sitting in person. And he points to like picture yourself sitting in front of a campfire, hanging out with your friends anytime that you want, or being able to watch a movie in a private theater with your friends. And so it becomes more of a shared viewing experience versus something that's navigable. I think the Nintendo VR that happened years ago that had the glove and you could shoot. Those are some things that are interesting. I think the most interesting one is actually 2 weeks ago I saw a video of a team that made Duck Hunt, a virtual reality experience. So you actually had kind of a zapper, and where you could see your hand moving in the VR space and
Right.
playing Duck Hunt.
Yeah, I can't wait for more people to try this. If you want to check out this stuff, I don't know about everybody else's local Best Buy, but at my local Best Buy store, they have a Gear VR on display for demo.
Mm-hmm.
Go check it out, and you will definitely be impressed. The resolution that the usually all the new Samsung Galaxy devices have very good resolution anyway, but the one thing I noticed about the resolution with the Gear VR is it's still good. There's a slight possibility of getting what they call a screen door effect, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically you're magnifying those pixels so large that you can actually see the black lines that are between the pixels. It's called a screen door effect. It was way worse before. Now pixel density is getting pretty high, so there's not much of that effect. One thing that I noticed though is if a face fills up the entire screen, it's very clear. However, if it's maybe a quarter the size of the screen, quarter the height, it can get a little fuzzy. So the resolution still needs to get improved. I think cell phone displays are already at an amazing resolution, but once the technology develops where they get even further and higher resolution, then these Gear VR type headsets are going to be absolutely amazing.
Yep. Well, I think that takes us to our science story. This week we've heard a lot about cool innovations that are coming out of the mobile side, but actually something that's bridging both science and technology is with the advent of new microchips that can be implanted to replace dialysis. Essentially, they're being used as new kidney or implants to help non-performing kidneys. Each of the chips are actually embedded with biological material that can help filter out many of the things that the kidneys are when you're going into kidney failure. But can actually start acting in place of the kidneys, filtering out the blood and filtering out the system. I know as somebody who likes his glass of wine or a beer with friends occasionally. It's something that I think it can make a great advancement, but it's also one of the things I think if you look at the field of biohacking, is now something that we are having to not necessarily deal with where people are doing it themselves, but now how doctors are really relying on technology to make improvements where the body is failing.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. We've come a long way in medical technology, and now, a lot of the technology used to be from the outside in, machines on the outside doing stuff. And so when stuff starts getting implanted inside a person, that's absolutely amazing that a body, can adapt and then use this kind of technology to heal itself. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a video online. If you go to Vanderbilt University's YouTube channel, they actually have a video showing some of the testing that's going on. The implant that they put in actually has 15 chips, and each chip is embedded with live kidney cells. So it's I think it's amazing that we've come this far to not only help our bodies, um, uh, you know, perform better or outperform where our kidneys or other things are failing. But if you look at, I think it's about 100,000 patients that are currently on the waiting list for kidney transplants. And last year, only 17,000 people that were on that waiting list got a transplant. So if we're able to do something to fill the gap for that other 83,000 people who've been waiting for a long time, who are going through dialysis, who are having to suffer with one kidney, um, uh, you know, we're better able to save more lives. And I think this is just an amazing advancement that we have today.
Amazing.
Yeah. Andrew, you've been playing this week with your new cell phone. What did you get?
I got the Samsung Galaxy S6.
So beforehand, you've been an Apple guy, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I've been an Apple user for about 8 years,
I'm
and
sorry.
yeah. Well, it's a great product. Just make sure you have an iPhone 6 if you don't want encryption to be a problem. I loved Apple. I was a long time user. Never had a problem with it really. Always made fun of Android users and things like that.
It's okay. We always make fun of Apple users. So
Yeah, it was a liked debate. But one of the problems I was had is that I always had to be carrying two phones because I was using a personal phone, my iPhone, and then I have another phone for work.
mm-hmm.
And I've been carrying two phones for 2 years, and it's sort of annoying to do that. So I decided, okay, it's time to combine these things and get a new phone and figure out which platform would be best.
Mm-hmm.
And after some research, I decided to go for Android. And at first, I got a Droid Turbo 2, and it was a good phone, not for me, but so I was able to switch it out for S6, and I switched to S6 for a few different reasons, but the Droid Turbo 2 was still a great phone, and so actually when I was exchanging these phones, I had them both in my possession for a couple days, and I decided to make a YouTube video to compare these two devices because they're each fantastic phones. One is better suited for certain types of users, and the other is for other types of users.
Right.
So yeah, the Droid Turbo 2 is a great phone. I got the S6, it's a great phone, and so I actually did a YouTube video. It's going to be posted tomorrow, and you will be able to see the different pros and cons of each device and what I liked and what I didn't like about each device.
Right.
And it's a pretty full comparison between the two.
Yep. I've for a long time, I think I was one of the original Android adopters when they came out with the Android platform, and I've never gone away from it. I think I went from a dumb phone to my first smartphone that I had was an Android phone. And I've never been an Apple guy. And recently, I had to pick up an iPhone 6 for a client review or for media review kits that we were doing for actually the Power Up FPV, and I had the just a regular 6, and um, while I played around with it a lot more, as I looked at the two of them, I didn't see that many differences, or at least I saw more similarities than I did differences in terms of user interface, in terms of app launchers. There are certain nuances to both operating systems that I thought were interesting, but I'm interested to hear the full review. Everybody else, click on the review, both in the show notes and probably here on the screen somewhere. But check it out. It was awesome. We have more reviews also scheduled. Andrew and I, we both have Amazon Echo. Is yours still named Echo or Alexa?
My name is Alexa.
Yeah, I've got.
I wish we had. Let me just say real quick. When they were first announcing the Echo, it was only available to Prime members, and I'm a Prime member, so is Chris. And the early reports were saying that you could name the Echo anything you wanted to in order for it to start listening to you. And as I myself am a longtime Star Trek fan, I was hoping to name it computer, and it ended up Amazon. They only let you pick either Amazon or Alexa in order for you to wake it up.
Right.
And so I just stuck with Alexa.
Well,
unfortunately,
I do like, however, that they've had the open API that a lot of people have been able to plug in not only their applications, but also people have been able to crowdsource and contribute to Alexa's library of commands. So there are a bunch of hidden Easter eggs and Star Trek commands in there. So look them up and try some of those too. So you can tell her to make it so number one, or to provide some Earl Grey hot, and she will respond. Although you won't get a cup of Earl Grey. We're also planning on taking a look at drones. I know, Andrew, you've got 2 or 3 sitting around the house. I've got a couple sitting around our house, so we want to take a look at those and see what we think about the drone market today, as well as FAA requiring new drone regulations and registrations. And the last one, everybody can probably see behind me, I'm actually in a nice office setting. I set up here for our podcast in a incubator that has over 150 startups, one of which is a great game company, Wandake, and we'll be checking them out and their mobile game that they're in the process of developing and taking a deeper look at that. So we have a lot of videos planned on the horizon. We hope you enjoyed our first one today. Like us, follow us, subscribe to our channel. Please add comments in the show notes. Tell us what you want to see. What do you want us to review? What do you want us to discuss? How can we make it better? But thanks for tuning in. Andrew, anything else from your side?
I think you did a great job. Just to build on Chris. This type of video is going to be weekly. We'll have other videos going up throughout the week as well, if we find something worth talking about. But we'll see you next week.
And don't forget to also check in our daily STEM, which is our recap every day of the top stories in science, technology, engineering, and math. This has been Expedition STEM. We'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the ride.